Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the First Class, Second Place podcast. I'm your host, Jason Enrique, and we got another First Class guest up in the building today. Man, I've been looking forward to this for quite some time, man. We've been following each other on social media. We met each other once on another occasion, and now he's back, and I feel like it's already family right now. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have Instagram, you damn sure have seen this man some way, somehow. Ladies and gentlemen, none other than Jeffrey Rowe in the building. What is going on, Jeff?
My gosh, man. Thank you so much for having me, bro. You're going to make me blush right now, dude.
Well,
what an intro.
I appreciate you coming through, man. I appreciate you coming through. So,
of course.
But most importantly, I appreciate you showing the love on social media and everything. So, because the thing is that, like, before I met you in person, which was like earlier this year, I want to say back in like June or July, so sometime in summertime. It was hot as balls that day. But like that was the first time I met you. But before that, like I didn't know you from a can of paint. I didn't know exactly who you were. Right. But you always showed love. You always showed support. You shared clips and reels on my show on your page constantly. Mm-hmm. And I know that you're well versed. And it's crazy that the amount of mutual friends that we know, like and some of the people that you know on a close level have actually been on my show. Like shout out to Crazy Legs, shout out to Linda, you know, shout out to a whole bunch of people that we know mutually, man. But now you're here, and I appreciate you taking the time coming out.
Of course, man. You know, Legs. I think that the Legs episode was probably my introduction to you, but I've been following ever since, and I'm a big fan of all your work. And when I connect with somebody that's got good energy, that's got just being dope in general, right? Yeah. Like I'm a supporter of that. Those are the kinds of individuals that I'm seeking to connect with, and you seep that energy out of your pores. So it's like it was a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. So we'll get into all of that and everything, but let's start at the very, very beginning. So where was Mr. Jeffrey Rowe born and raised?
Oh gosh, so I was born in New York City.
Okay.
My mother's side of the family is from Manhattan.
Okay.
And my father's side of the family is from the Bronx. So I was born in Manhattan, but I moved to Jersey City very shortly after I was born, and I was raised there.
And hence the name Jersey City Jeff.
Jersey City Jeff.
Now, was that just an Instagram moniker, or was that a name that goes back way back in the day for you?
It's an Instagram moniker. I would say that is very much inspired by, again, a lot of individuals that I've just had the privilege of connecting with this year. My relationships have grown closer with a lot of different individuals, and somebody gave me the idea earlier this year. I started I was kind of at a point where I felt like I needed to step up my own personal branding game because I definitely had a lot of elements that you see in Jersey City Jeff that were on my personal page before I launched Jersey City Jeff back in February. But I decided I was at a point where I wanted to tell my story in a much more intentional kind of way. So, the Jersey City Jeff popped up back in February, and I've been just running with that ever since.
Okay. Now, going back to the earlier days when you were growing up in Jersey City, like, it seems to me that you've been a hip-hop head all your life, as long as you can remember. Like, so, and it seems like you're doing a whole bunch of things. So what would you say was, like, your first introduction to hip-hop? Like, when you were growing up in that culture, like, did you want to do music? Did you want to get into media? Like, was there something specific in that culture that you wanted to do right away?
Surprisingly enough, no.
Okay.
Hip-hop has always been a part of my life, just like you just described, but when it came to my creative pursuits, I was more in the world of video production and filmmaking.
Okay.
Right? So
so we're simpatico on that,
absolutely, 100%, man. That was another thing we started jamming on early on.
Absolutely, yes.
But yeah, man, I was a film geek growing up, but like, to your point, hip-hop has always been a part of my life, and I think that over the course of the past year, my relationship with hip-hop has just grown a lot more intimate and a lot deeper.
Nice. Yeah. So I assume also growing at that time, to me, I think the 90s, me personally, my own opinion, was the golden era of hip-hop. I know that people like to say it's like the Grandmaster Flashes and all that stuff in the 80s, Eric B. and Rakims. But for me personally, that whole decade of the 90s was the golden era because 100%. I think you had a mixture of the old school from back in the day seeping into the new decade, and then afterwards you have the new wave of not just for the music, but also for entrepreneurial stuff as well. And I think that's when it really took off and it really transcended it. And then somewhere in the 2000s, it kind of got like there was like a bit of a shift. Like I was still part of that. That was the generation I grew up in, but I did notice a shift.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think that in the early 90s, it's probably most aligned with the term you use about the golden era.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I kind of saw it as transitioning from that golden era that tapped into a lot of the old school inspirations that it drew from. To then the mid to late 90s, we started to see it taking on its own shape, like in like the transition from golden era to, I don't know what you would call the late 90s era, but it is also, there was golden era elements to it, but we started to see I think we started to see it really become homogenized for me, right?
Yeah.
Because like the way I look at it is late 90s became the Diddy era, right? Of him sampling all this stuff, and it was still tapping into the old school, but in a different way than hip hop groups of the early 90s, like Tribe and stuff like that, right? It was like a much more mainstream commercialized version of that. And I think that for me, it became homogenized to the point where I was seeking out something else, which was it made it so refreshing for X to come along, right, in the late 90s.
Yeah.
Right?
I always say that was like, it's funny because like when 50 Cent came out, Jay-Z coined the term. When 50 Cent came out, he DMX'd the game, because when DMX first came out, everything was all the shiny suits era, the money and the sampling and so on and so forth, and DMX brought it back to the streets.
Yeah.
Then it started reverting back to that bling bling era, and then the 50 Cent came in and he brought it back to the streets.
Yep.
But ever since then, I can't think. I'm pretty sure there's an artist out there that has brought it back, but because I'm a little bit older and I'm still stuck in a certain era, I can't really say who that is. Maybe Pop Smoke or something like that. I don't know.
That's a really good question. I would have to think about if I had to put my finger. So the funny thing about the fact that you mentioned 50 as being like the X of like another iteration of X.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that all these dudes are wearing wife beaters?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? You know? But if I had to put my finger on who's that today, I would probably take a stab at Benny the Butcher.
Yeah, I could agree. I mean, I'm a huge Griselda fan. I love everything they're doing. Me personally, West Side Gun is my favorite, but I fucks with Benny the Butcher. I fucks with Conway. I even fuck with Boldy James and everybody else. Part of Griselda, yeah. So, but you also mentioned that you were into like filmmaking and being a film geek and stuff.
Yeah.
So, what was your number one genre, or maybe like your top three genres of film that you were really into? Because for me, it was always action first and foremost. Like I was big on the Stallone and the Schwarzeneggers and the Bruce Willises of the world. Comedy, like Eddie Murphy and Chris Rock and stuff. And then I was also really, believe it or not, I was into like musicals. Like I know a lot of people are not really into musicals, and it's part of the reason why some movies like The Joker 2 won't do financially well. But there's something about musicals that I appreciate in the fact that it's performative and it's no easy task. But people just don't want to sit there and see musicals for some reason. But those are my top genres as far as I'm concerned. So like, was there like a movie like maybe like a Die Hard or a Beverly Hills Cop that really got you into filmmaking? Like that's what I want to do.
So I'm right there with you when it comes to the musicals. My favorite one is Jesus Christ Superstar.
Okay.
And I forget who it was I saw recently on an interview that said something like, in any art form, you can't like, there's no way around it. If you study theater, if you're good at theater, you're gonna be good at any art form. So I definitely feel you on the theatrical components of musicals and why that makes them so dope. But comedy was also another big one for me. Surprise, surprise, rom-coms, dude.
Okay.
Like, no shame in my game. I love rom-coms.
Sleepless in Seattle. What's up, baby?
Sleepless in Seattle, One Fine Day, George Clooney and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Wow. What a throwback.
Oh my gosh, Going the Distance, Justin Long, Drew Barrymore. So yeah, a lot of that kind of stuff that I'm very much into. But my favorite, I can give you my top three, definitely my top two favorite movies. Vanilla Sky with Tom Cruise and Penelope Cruz.
That's a fucking weird movie or so, but I know what you know.
Yeah, so that's where it's like the curveball for me, because I'll give you like, I love comedy, I like rom-coms, but I also love a sci-fi sort of component or thriller component. I'm not sure. So it's like that. I love Vanilla Sky, which, if you didn't know, that's actually a remake of a 90s film called Abre los Ojos. And Penelope Cruz plays the same exact role that she played So and then Cameron Crowe directed that, and he was simultaneously directing Almost Famous.
Yes, he was.
So that's another interesting fun fact. But following that one, it would be Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh my God,
Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet.
Fucking love that movie.
Yeah, Michelle Gondry. I mean, dude,
Michelle Gondry's a great filmmaker.
Incredible.
I mean, it's unfortunate that he had to do the Green Hornet, but that was just a cash grab more than anything. But I love Michelle Gondry's work. I think he's phenomenal. Yeah. Even the Dave Chappelle Block Party documentary, that was amazing.
Yep.
I loved it.
100%,
Absolutely.
100%.
So. When it comes to creatives, unfortunately, and it's also becoming, us Hispanics, minorities, we have cultures in our families from, that raised us where, they came to this country and they love they love to play it safe and get like the safe kind of, jobs and everything. And, and they want the best for us. But they also have preconceived notions or trepidations about the dreams that we want to pursue.
Yeah.
Did you feel any pushback from anybody in your family or even your closest friends at a very young age when you wanted to do something in the arts, but it just didn't vibe with them at that specific time?
1,000%, and it was my parents.
Really?
So they definitely saw that I had a creative affinity, towards the arts, and that I was talented as well, because I did a number of things in grade school and going into my high school years. But once I got to college and they were like, "Wow, you're really gonna be a film major," and I was like, "Yeah." They kind of put a little bit of that apprehension and that fear into me, where it's like, come on, papi, like, don't pigeonhole yourself. If you're going to invest all this money into a degree, why don't you get a degree that you could take into any industry? They just wanted me to have options, really, right?
Yeah.
But it was also that sort of reluctancy that they played it safe. Our parents and the generations before them, were of the mindset of keep your head down. Don't ask any questions and shut the fuck up. And that might have worked for them in the past because there was a different circumstance. It was another time, another age, a time where the so-called climbing the ladder to success was of a linear path. But it's not that way anymore for the millennials and the generations going after that. The path to success is more of a spiral, right? Where it's like you got to go around and learn a lot of different things and learn how to do a lot of different things so that way you can try out a lot of different things and see what becomes most successful for you. Especially in today's day and age where you have to have multiple revenue streams, like a job and a side hustle. Good. Yeah, that and a Metro card to get you on the subway, motherfucker.
Dude, I know people that are actors and comedians and they do all this other stuff, but they also do podcasting. So it's like it's beautiful to see them not stay in a box, but it's like they have to do all of these other things in order to really, keep their name afloat, and present company included. I'm one of those people as well. Yeah. And it's actually much different than what I thought it would be 20 years ago when I was a kid.
Right. I mean, our mutual buddy, man, salute, shout out to Legs, bro.
Yeah.
But he always says this, you are the one who's responsible for your own relevance.
That's
right?
correct.
So,
yeah. Drop a bomb on that one. Drop a bomb on
for
that
sure.
One. So when you had that pushback, did it involve any discouragement on your part, or you more the headstrong kind of person where you know what, I don't give a fuck, I'm just gonna still go for it?
Yeah, I'm not even gonna front, man. It shook me a little bit, and it gave me a moment of pause. I'm not gonna say it shook me per se, because I did what I had to do mentally to pivot in a way that was honoring the wishes of my parents, which was something I felt compelled to do, right? Because I owe my life to them, right? And I know that they only want the best for me. So I didn't take the advice to necessarily, it didn't discourage me, but it was like, okay, how am I gonna get a little bit even more tap into my own creativity to navigate through this problem, right? So what I ended up doing was taking a break, reassessing the situation and what my options were. I pivoted over to marketing. At the time, I was going to Hunter College in New York City. Shout out to Legs again. He went to that school. But yeah, I ended up transferring to NJCU here in Jersey City, and I pivoted over to a marketing major, but I still minored in media arts. So I got to study screenwriting and sound production and video production and all that good stuff.
Did you ever get a chance to make your own short films?
Yeah, I actually made my first short film I made while I was taking a summer course at the School of Visual Arts. That was back during high school years. And since then, I've done, amateur stuff like sketches and music videos and things like that. But I found sort of the evolution of what I felt was my calling to do. It went from during my youngest years, wanting to be an actor. Then I got into like adolescent years, started watching a lot of Dawson's Creek, and wanted to be the next Spielberg, right? Oh, I want to be a director, right? And then when I actually got to the point where I am teaching myself the craft, I found my sweet spot to be in writing and producing because I'm very good at project management and knowing how to focus and execute and what are the steps in order for us to get this idea, bring it to life. And I'm a good writer.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
I was and I love that you found your sweet spot. And I was actually talking about this on a previous episode with my guest Zane. Shout out to Zane, where I had mentioned to him and the audience that realistically, I really wanted to be an actor at a very early age. Like I remember seeing Die Hard with a Vengeance, and I wanted to be John McClane so bad, but I was also a kid that didn't feel very comfortable being in front of a mirror, let alone a camera.
Yeah.
So that's when I saw the featurette of the making of the movie, and I thought maybe instead of Bruce Willis, I want to be John McTiernan, the director, because he's like he's having a ball.
See?
But then fast forward to now, I have done a little bit of directing. I've done more acting than directing, but the epiphany that I realized, and I reiterated on this episode, is that I don't know how I did it, but I found the confidence to just be in front of a camera and not try to have that shyness or that insecurity about myself. And now I can honestly say that even though I have enjoyed directing, my real love was really acting. And it seems like I just needed to get over that hump of my insecurity to finally get to where I wanted to make that 8 or 9-year-old Jason proud.
Dig it. Yeah, I think that with both of our creative paths following a similar trajectory, you get to that point where you gotta lose those fears, right?
Yeah.
You're pinned into a corner where you have to face them regardless, right? What about when you started this show, right? Like you're in front of a camera now,
right?
So it's like,
and it didn't start out that way either.
It
didn't start out that way. I did this. This is just an audio only platform for like the first 50 episodes, and then finally I just said, "Fuck it."
Yeah, take it up another level, and then you're in front of the camera, and look at you now. You're doing short films, and you look great.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. But yeah, so when you started doing your like, I guess I want to ask you like your writing process. You said you're a great writer. You're a great writer, and I've yet to see any of your projects yet. I want to see what you have because obviously I want to do my research and stuff, and I want to support. But everybody has their process, whether it's cooking, whether it's writing, whether it's podcasting, whether it's practicing in sports, whatever the case may be. Can you just elaborate a little bit more about your writing process? Like, how do you make that work?
Ooh. That's a really, really good question. I don't even know that I have a process per se ironed out, right? Because I'm at a point in my creative journey where I am tapping back into the things that compelled me to want to create to begin with, right? If that makes sense.
Sure, yeah.
So what I can tell you is the premise around the last significant piece of writing that I wrote for, like, when it comes to like screenplays. So the premise that I had was kind of like, put yourself in the mindset of like Horrible Bosses meets Zombieland.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So the premise meets like Harold and Kumar, something like that. So like the premise is basically like, two best friends that live together. One's, lazy pothead. The other one's an ambitious, driven dude who's trying to make a career for himself. Dude goes on the interview, and, before he heads out of the apartment, his lazy pothead best friend convinces him to smoke a joint with him before he leaves for his interview. So, he ends up, running late or something or other. I gotta look back on it. I'll share it with you. I still have it. I'll dig it up.
Okay.
But basically the guy ends up finding out that the guy he interviewed with, that he gets hired for the job, While he's out on the interview, his buddy's making a big racket at home.
Okay.
And the next door neighbor's wife is complaining. So he ends up finding out, long story long, that the guy who just hired him on his interview is also his next door neighbor. And so he's chasing to beat him home, right? Because he knows that he got pissed off because his wife's calling him. And his boss lives with his wife, who is a zombie. Right?
Whoa.
The premise is basically like post in a zombie apocalypse, after they got rid of all the zombies, they decided to let this one homie's wife stay alive as a zombie because they discovered that she was the only like non-violent zombie, right? Yeah. And this dude comes from money and power, like a Kevin Spacey and Horrible Bosses type of situation. Yeah. But he's like fed up with living with his zombie wife. Like he's miserable being married to the zombie wife. So he hires yo, I'll give you the job, but you got to kill my wife for good. That's kind of the premise of it, you know?
That's you know what? I love it because it's an original idea.
Yeah,
in a world now, in a generation where everything is just copy and paste and rehashed, I could appreciate the original.
If somebody steals it, I hope I'm protected under your copyright at the very least. Right?
Because you know what it is also? It reminds me, and I told the story before on my show, and I'll reiterate it with you. So there was a film that I got invited to 2 years ago. They were holding a premiere for a movie at a theater in Patterson that unfortunately is no longer there. But they invited me out. I knew somebody that was in the movie. They wanted me to come support, check it out. So I did. Long story long, worst fucking movie I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
It was terrible. I didn't say anything, and I didn't want to be disrespectful and rude and leave the theater. But that was a movie that I just wanted to walk out, but I wanted to be respectful to the people that were in the audience.
Yeah.
But my point is that even though I thought it was the worst movie I've ever saw in my life, I have to respect the people behind making the movie, because in a world where everybody keeps on saying they want to do this, they want to do that, they actually fucking did it. Regardless of the result or how it came out, poor lack of execution, at least they actually did it. They worked with what they had, and they went out and did something that most people say that they wish they could do and never put their front foot forward.
Yeah.
So that's, even though I will never see the movie again, but it's going to stay with me for as long as I live, unfortunately. But I will always have that respect and admiration for those people, because they didn't just say, I want to make a movie. They said, I made a movie.
I made a fucking movie. A for effort, dude. You got out there and you did something. And at the very least, that's the thing. You can say that you did that. You created that.
Right. And another example in a story that I'll share with you and also with the audience as well is one of my good friends, Ramon Pesante. Shout out to Ramon Pesante. He was on the show once, and he was talking about how his first film, I forget the name of it, and I don't think he would want me to say it anyway, because he thinks it's horrible. He thinks it's such a bad movie. He can't believe that he made a monstrosity like that. But then fast forward to now, he has an amazing, wonderful film named Playing Sam. And one of my dear friends, Alana J, is also in it. Shout out to Alana J, love you, girl. And it was one of my top 10 movies of that year when it came out. I thought it was phenomenal. I thought it was very well made. And so the point that I'm bringing at is that I feel like what holds people back, whether they want to make a film or they want to do an album or whatever the hell they want to do, they care so much about their first project or their first attempt at something that at the very possible, monkey in the wrench thrown into the plants, whatever the case may be. I can't think of the analogy right now, but they care too much about it, and that sometimes stops them from pursuing it because they're chasing perfection. When, it doesn't matter if your first whatever you want to do comes out perfect, at least you did it. And, another example that I thought of before was David Fincher. David Fincher is one of the greatest directors of our time. His first feature film, Alien 3, he disowned it. There's a lot of people that they want to treat their first film or their first project or whatever the case is like their baby. But, they have to be open to the idea that they could always be better later on down the line.
Right. You have to approach it with the mindset of, I know that there's no such thing as perfection. So rather than seeking to achieve that and ending up getting caught in analysis paralysis, just go, bro. Take a step, put one foot in front of the other, come on.
Right. I mean, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I kind of look at myself as an example because I did that with this podcast, For me doing all these things that I'm doing now, it probably wouldn't have been possible without First Class, Second Place being that first step.
Yeah.
That's the way that I look at it.
Dude, I'm pretty. You're one of my biggest supporters. So I'm pretty sure you've seen the fact that I got shouted out on Sway's show this morning.
Yes.
Right.
Shout out to Sway. Sway in the morning.
Salute to Sway. That was not a planned thing. That wasn't even me calling in. That was just another citizen of Sway in the morning calling in, happened to mention my name. And the Don Sway big ups my podcast that hasn't even launched yet. And the reason for that is because, what do you call it? I interviewed my boy Esteban earlier this week on Tuesday, right? Yeah. And yesterday I was wanting to share a little preview of what that interview was. That's what I've been doing, just testing out, teasing out content here and there, seeing what hits and how people respond to it. And I wanted to get Esteban's little teaser clip out there. But I wanted to make sure that I had a logo for my podcast before I did that. So that was my day yesterday, was creating the logo.
Okay.
Now the logo's not perfect. I know I'm going to iterate on it, but it was good enough to meet my standard of quality, which I have a pretty high bar.
Sure, yeah.
But I wouldn't call myself a perfectionist by any means. You know, you strive for perfection, but you know, you can only strive for it. You have to know that you can only strive for it. And it has to get to a point where you have to hold grace for yourself to know that, you know, there's got to be a good enough.
Yeah. How did you make that connection with Sway, if you don't mind me asking?
So I actually used to work at SiriusXM back in 2015. It was the last job that I had before I left Jersey.
What did you do at SiriusXM?
I was a social media coordinator on their listener care team. So I was responsible for supporting the listeners who may have had trouble with their radios in their cars, if they're getting bad signal or something like that.
Okay.
But also making sure that I collect the feedback and capture the voice of the SiriusXM listener community in order to share that information with other stakeholders in the company that would be in charge of, you know, social content calendars and editorial calendars and things like that. So
sounds like a pretty daunting task.
I mean, it wasn't, I mean, it's daunting as far as you have, as like any other support-based kind of role, right? You have individuals who get irate and just hit you up just because they got nothing better to do, or, you know, maybe they're one of the listeners that's just sitting home in their pajamas and shit like that. But outside of that, man, it's actually a pretty dope job. You know, it wasn't like I wasn't in the studio with right next to Sway where all the fun happens and everything like that. But that's where my relationship with Sway began. And since I left the company, it's continued in a very organic fashion where it's just, you know, we're helping each other out behind the scenes.
Yeah, you know, I've never met Sway, but I've always got the sense that that's a guy that is always willing to help out, lend a helping hand, does not have an ego. And dude, this is a legend. This is a legend in our industry, man. Yeah. This guy goes way, way back like wife beaters.
Already in the American Radio Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
And yeah, to your point, dude, I mean, the level at which he's helping others out, it's a force of nature. It's its own like living, breathing organism. That guy is community on a level unlike anything I've ever seen before.
Right. And, you know, kind of low key, I kind of look up to him as far as like when podcasting or media is concerned, because what I mean by that is, even though he's known very well versed in the hip hop culture, he's very eclectic. And what I mean by that is, yeah, he'll have on Tyler the Creator or Kanye West or Joel Ortiz, but then he'll also have Quentin Tarantino. He'll have on Jim Norton, you know, people that are not in his industry per se, but he still recognizes good talent when he is.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what it's all about, because I'd like to think that my show has been very eclectic. I've had artists, I've had filmmakers, I've had comedians, I've had mental health advocates, I've had politicians, and neither one of them have the exact same agenda. Like I got some people that are hardcore liberals, I got people that are fucking MAGA, but it's all like in one big melting pot, and I just don't want to like put myself in a box per se.
No, and that's absolutely what Sway is. I mean, having gone from a radio personality out in the West Coast, right, with the Wake Up Show, to moving cross country and starting to work with MTV and entering the corporate world at that level, you have to be the kind of individual that can rub elbows and get along and be professional with people from all walks of life. So it's not like Sway ever poised himself or put himself into a place where he was ever going to be able to be put in a box. You know what I'm saying? So what the level at which he's doing it right now, it's and to your point about not being afraid to take that first step and not get caught up in striving for perfection. He very much is still of that. In the same way that he'll bring on the biggest names and people you've never heard of before, he'll also have his hand at trying out new things. I bet a lot of people don't know that he has a podcast about boxing called Bridge Business.
I didn't even know that.
That's part of Sway's universe, But if you go on his YouTube channel, you'll see it's a literal Sway's universe of content. It's not just the interviews from Sway in the morning. It's the Rap Dad Show.
Yeah,
it's
I know
Bridge Business, and there's a whole bunch of other content that's there. So it really is like a Marvel universe of content that Sway has built out. So once again, salute to him, bro.
He's Nick Fury of that universe.
Check out Bridge Business too, because that's a great boxing podcast that is co-hosted by Sway and Horse from the Uchiwali feature.
The Bravehearts.
Yeah, the Bravehearts.
And
Big Horse.
How ironic is it that we're
Shout
live
out
at
to
Bravery
Big
Studios.
Horse, Vernon Bully, man. Yeah, Bridge Business Podcast. Great show.
That's what's up, man.
Yeah.
So you actually lived in the West Coast for some time, right?
No.
You didn't?
Never lived in the West Coast. I have family out in the West Coast. I visit quite often. But I left Jersey in 2017. I was living in Austin, Texas for 3 years.
Okay.
And then I moved to Florida in 2020, which is where I'm based now.
Okay. So I guess the point that I'm getting at here is obviously you're a Northeastern guy, and then you've traveled a lot. You've been to the West Coast. You lived in Texas. You live in Florida now. But it seems like you're still a guy that sticks to his roots.
Yeah.
For a guy like me who unfortunately hasn't done a lot of traveling, like I've been to the West Coast once, but that was mainly Nevada and San Francisco and Sacramento. I've never been to South California.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Texas. I haven't done a lot of traveling. I'm trying to change that.
Yeah.
But being able to see a little bit more of the world than I have, and being in the industry that you are in, what are some of the cultural differences that were kind of like a little out there for you in the beginning, but then you learned to adapt to it?
I would say that the biggest misconception that I had, and that people in your position might also have this bias of like that there's things that are going to be so far outside of the norms from whence they came that it's going to throw them for that kind of a loop. I'll give you an example. I thought that when I moved to Florida, I was going to be like, oh man, I'm going to the state where books are banned, bro. Like, I might get lynched out here in these streets, But surprisingly enough, there's more Northeasterns down there now than there've ever been.
Yeah.
So it's like I would bump into people from Jersey and New York all the time, So what I would say to that is like, it's not what you think it is. And what I ended up finding once I stepped outside the tri-state area was that people are friendlier, dude. It was like a pleasant sort of surprise. I didn't have to get used to it. It was something that I enjoyed getting used to, because it's like, oh, wow. I'm smiling at people in the morning now, and they're smiling back at me, and they're saying good morning and shit like that. They're not looking at me like, yo, motherfucker, who you smiling at? It's the morning time, man. I'm on my way to work, bro.
Not before I have my coffee, motherfucker.
I have my coffee yet. I'm ready to gangbang on some bacon, man. Fuck.
You wildin', man. No, but that's cool, man. And I don't know if you want to speak about this. I kind of want to protect your identity and everything, but I also know that you're also a father.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, how is that dynamic of being being a father to a wonderful child or children, basically doing everything that you do? Because I see that you're out here. Like, you could be in Los Angeles, you can be in Texas, you can be in Florida. You're up here right now.
Yeah.
It seems like you're doing a lot of things, and it's surprised to hear that you're also adding dad to the title.
Yeah, well, that was a role that I stepped into at a very early age. First of all, salute to my daughter, Ariana Michelle Rowe. I love you. I will always be here for you. But yeah, dude, I became a father at 22 was when Ari was born. And even before that, I had stepped into the role of bonus dad to her 2 siblings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I started early, 19. Yeah.
And how's that dynamic now?
Um, it's evolving, you know. Like Ari's 17 now. She's getting ready for college. She's in her senior year of high school. She just landed a role in her high school's production of Footloose. She's done like
So she's an entertainer as well.
she's a thespian, yeah,
Wow.
man. Yeah,
Okay.
dude.
It runs in the family, apparently.
Chach, man. There's no denying that. But yeah, she's done like 2-3 plays this year alone. I'm like super proud of her, dude.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
But it's nice to know that you're still very much, having the title of father with everything that's going on, because you're doing a lot, man. Because like, ladies and gentlemen, if you look on his Instagram, which is Jersey City Jeff, this guy doesn't stop. He's all over the place. He's always working. He's always grinding. I'm like, I don't know if this guy ever fucking sleeps.
Man, listen, I'm definitely been busier than I've been in most of my career. This has been probably the busiest year.
What's the motivation behind that besides money?
Besides money?
Yeah.
I don't even know that money's the motivation to begin with, dog.
Okay.
For me, it's, we're all kind of in this weird season of like a human existence where a lot of us are losing folks, man, and that was a big part of it for me. Last May, my brother, my best friend of 33 years, someone that I grew up with since the age of 5, right, who I looked at like a brother, really the only solid ass brotherly love that I've ever known. Unfortunately, he committed suicide last May. He was battling depression, and that was kind of the start of it all, because we were supposed to go out and make movies together. You know what I'm saying? We were supposed to be like the Latino Coen brothers and shit. You know what I'm saying? So that was a big blow. And since then, the unprecedented level of loss and grief continued from there. My grandmother made her transition in the beginning of this year, January 2nd. And then my father made his transition this past August. He was the reason why I moved to Florida from Austin. Mm-hmm. He was diagnosed with leukemia, and I went to be his caregiver.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, first and foremost, my condolences for your losses. That's a lot to handle, especially in the short amount of time that it's happened.
For sure.
But especially with and that's actually a nice segue too, because what I wanted to get into now is not only the fact that you've been supportive of my show and we've got to know each other over time, speaking on the phone, whatever the case may be and everything, but I think that one of the things that really caught your attention, for lack of a better term, when it came to the subject of me, was my mental health advocacy.
Yes.
And it was I really appreciated the fact that you were a person that saw the message that I was trying to convey out there, especially at that time when I wasn't going through when I wasn't doing well mentally myself, even though I was, hiding behind a big smile on my face.
Right.
And it actually did wonders for my platform and for my persona, because I had no idea that I was reaching out to people that felt the same way that I did. Yeah. And it even was jarring to me to know that I was, in some cases, to some people, that extra push, for lack of a better term, to actually feel like it's okay to get this out and talk about this kind of stuff. Yeah. And that was something that when we first met, when I first came on your podcast, which hopefully be out soon, it was actually. It was a deep conversation, and I didn't think that we were going to get as deep as we were, but it seemed like that was something that you wanted to hear, not just for your audience when it eventually comes out, but I also kind of got the sense that maybe you needed to hear whatever I had to say to get through whatever you were going through at that specific moment in time. I could be wrong. I may be moving into it too deeply.
I think that when we exchange our lived experiences when it comes to whatever it is that we're struggling with, we all need to hear each other's stories, right? Because there are parts of it, even though they're their own unique journeys and they may not be in full alignment, right? Like, there's definitely shared experiences, especially being Latinos who come from Jersey, It's just like, I think one of the things I said when I was interviewing you was like, yo, dog, I feel like I'm talking to somebody that I would have been best friends with in high school. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was a large part of our conversation, was like, growing up in as a Latino in Jersey,
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that, because the way that I would say is, I don't know if we would have been friends in high school, but
you're right. Hold on, not to cut you off, but you're probably right, because if you were dealing with stuff that you had to navigate and work through in order to get to where you are today, then chances are we probably wouldn't have gotten along in high school. You know what I'm saying? If I had to peg you as anyone that I would have crossed paths with in high school, I mean, I was always the type of dude that got along with everybody, but not everybody got along with me.
Oh, okay,
you know
so in that sense, we are simpatico. But I guess what I'm getting at is, I would have saw somebody like you, and you're very personable. You get along with everybody, even though people may not like you for whatever reason. Yeah. But me, it's just more of like, I don't know if I would have been friends with you, but only because I was in my own head with my own insecurities. Like, I see somebody like you that's getting along with everybody, and everybody knows Jeffrey and everything. Would I be able to fit in with the cool crew, so to speak?
Right.
Is there a chance that I can get in with them, and God forbid, don't say anything that's going to make me look stupid or look like an idiot or something like that? I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
In that case,
so like, it's, but you know what? That's just evolution overall, man. Because I'll even tell you right now, one of my dear friends now, who I absolutely adore with all my heart and everything, we met back in 2007. That wasn't what it was, but that was just me being insecure as well, and not knowing what another person may be going through.
Right.
But to me, they were a fucking superstar. Like, everybody loved them. They were like the most popular, voted in class and everything like that. We get to know each other better over time, and I'm seeing more layers into that person that I didn't know were there. And so I felt bad in the sense that I was judging a book by its cover, but I'm so glad that I was able to have the foresight and the growth and the evolution to see that there's more layers to a person, and also stop overthinking. I mean, I understand I'm human. I have my own insecurities, but like, don't let it overconsume your entire world.
Absolutely. And if I'm a betting man, which I'm not, but I can bet my next paycheck, wherever it may be coming from, that
putting the manifestation out there.
Yeah, putting that manifestation out there, that I probably would have at some point come up to you and tried to engage with you on a one-to-one level, because if you were the type of individual who had any sort of apprehensions or nervousness about being in a group setting, or whether you were going to say something stupid, then I probably would have just made sure that I caught you off to the side when nobody was really noticing that we were talking to each other, and you felt comfortable to talk to me, and I would have been like, yo, what's up, man? How you doing? How's everything going? You know, you all right?
Well, you know what, man? I definitely could have used a friend like you in high school, but I'm glad I have a friend like you right now.
There you go, man. There you go. Better late than never.
Yeah, exactly. And if that is not the definition of my life in the last couple of years, but so be it.
Dig it.
So, but continuing on with your podcast, though. So obviously, I mean, even though I sound like a hypocrite saying this right now, but it seems like everybody and their mother has a podcast now, because everybody wants to do it. I'm not telling any tales out of school, and I mentioned ad nauseum about, like, some people out there could see somebody like Joe Rogan. He makes $100 million deal with Spotify, and now they think, oh, maybe this is the new way that I can get famous and rich and stuff like that. Yeah. And then a bunch of them don't even get past 10 to 30 episodes.
Right.
But I don't get that sense from you. I get the sense that with you, it's much different. You're not doing it for monetary reasons per se. It feels like this is something that you thought you would be good at, and you want to give it a shot.
Yep.
And I see that even though you can't chase perfectionism like we were talking before, I definitely see the passion in there that I don't see in a lot of other podcasters or content creators.
I appreciate that. Thank you, first and foremost. And yeah, I would say that, the intention is not solely to make money, right? Yeah. Like, the reason I have a podcast is because I started my first business this year. So in a very literal way, it's to make money, but I'm not seeking to monetize my podcast right off the bat. My business that is separate but works in tandem with my show is a consulting agency, a consulting practice, because I've been doing this work as a community manager for 13 years. And just in case y'all need to zoom in, I bring people together, okay? So after having done this work for 13 years, I'm ready to start my own shit, right? And I'm ready to have to start working with other businesses and other brands that are owned and operated by members of the BIPOC community and those of our allies, to really teach them how to use community management to effectively grow their businesses, because there's scientific and artful ways to execute on community management. And I want to take the fact that I've been privileged enough to do this work for 13 years and take all of the gems that I've learned in my career and bring it back to my people. You know what I'm saying? So the podcast is a vehicle to create awareness for my consulting practice, while also getting to share the stage with other dope people that are doing great things like yourself.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, and like I said, I was very honored that you thought of me to come on. You know, I've been doing this show for quite some time now, but I still have those pinch me moments whenever people are interested in having me on their platform, because to me, I know what it's like to take time and effort, and in some cases money, out of your day in order to do a show like this, or however people do their shows. Yeah. And so when I get that opportunity to be on somebody else's, you know, they could have easily chose somebody else, but they decide to have me on. I don't take that shit for granted at all. Yeah. I always take it in stride, and I'm always going to be appreciative and supportive, because that's the same energy that I want received back to me as well. Right. And you know, one of the things that can be frustrating, unfortunately, in this business is you have collaborators and you have competitors. Yeah. And I don't want to do anything with competition, because when I got into this medium, when I got into this podcast thing, my ideal thing was just all about collaboration. You know, first class, second place is not just about me. It's supposed to be about a community, you know? And people ask me all the time what's the meaning behind the show, the title, I should say. And I always had different amalgamations, but I think the most concrete answer that I can give behind the name of first class, second place, shortly put, is being the best version of yourself, but never forgetting where you come from. That's basically what it comes from, for anybody that's wondering. And when I first got into it, I wanted to keep that mindset where I don't want to be in competition with anybody. I just want to like work together and make the world a better place and have fun and possibly make money if possible. Yeah. But one of the things that I thought was crazy is that as long as I've been in it now, you've had naysayers and you've had competitors and you've had people that have tried to throw dirt on your name for whatever reason. Wow. You know, they could look at you as a threat. I don't know. I don't know the motives, and I honestly can't really afford to care at this point. Yeah. But it's in the beginning it was jarring, but I think I'm now reaching to the point where I just realize, hey, welcome to the business. That's just what it is, you know? It's no different than the rap game.
I mean, you'll often find that the individuals who have the time to be naysaying or hating on whatever it is that you might be doing aren't really up to much. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, when it comes to competition, I don't feel that there's you can compete with each other in a positive way. You know what I'm saying? Like Rap Dad Show, for instance, right? Okay. Salute to my boy Esteban. You know, DJ EFN has Fatherhoods, which is another podcast about father. There's about like at least 3 or 4 different podcasts that of a significant quality, right? Of a top tier that are, you know, about the same topic. There's room for that. And if anything, if it's something that's being framed as a positive message that we're trying to get out there, then great. We are collaborators. You want to call us competitors? Call it whatever you want, but its voice is amplified, right? So if somebody has a podcast that's, you know, thematically similar to yours, there should be room enough for everyone to have a voice, a share of the voice. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, I don't really dig competitive mindsets either. I mean, I'm competing to be the best version of myself, so I always seek to do better than what I did yesterday. But that's about as far as it goes for me, man.
At the end of the day, the only real competition are the people in the mirror. Yeah. You're the only one that you have to face at the end of the day. So. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Thank you, Najee, for the bombs. I appreciate that. All right, so obviously you're in the works and doing the show and everything. Yes. I don't want to put any pressure on you, but do you have at least a mindset or a timetable on where you're looking to planning on releasing it, so my audience can definitely check it out?
No, we're definitely looking to come out the door swinging for January of 2025. You know, right now the focus is really just getting our ducks lined up in terms of making sure that Season 1 content is locked, loaded, and ready to go. So that way we can start working on season 2. But yeah, we're almost there.
Yeah. And what I'm interested in to check it out is because you kind of explained a little bit about the format, which is not your usual podcast format.
Right.
And that's like, again, it goes back to the originality. And I'm intrigued to see how it's going to go.
Yeah.
And I think that with as much clout that you have in this business and how much experience you have and knowing the right people and everything, I think that the sky's going to be the limit for you ultimately.
I appreciate you saying that, man. As far as the format goes, I'm really seeking to have a radio style formatted show that is targeted at the professional world. Because again, my show is meant to put a spotlight on what I do for a living, which is digital community management. But again, I want to differentiate myself. I've got a lot of colleagues that have been doing this community management work for longer than I have, that I have great respect for, and that have consulting practices and podcasts of their own. But if I'm making an observation and a constructive criticism about the landscape, the content seems very evergreen to me. It seems very community management 101, very high level stuff, very theory based stuff. Whereas what I would like to do is put a spotlight on folks who are community builders in their own right, but may not necessarily have the words community manager in their job title, right? Mm-hmm. So, in an effort to sort of crack what everyone's used to, a lot of my colleagues are used to in terms of what they're going to get out of a community management podcast. That's why I'm saying, let me bring my passion for hip hop into this, and let's have a show that explores the intersection of community management and hip hop, right? because where do you find, what better place to find community than within the hip hop culture,
Absolutely.
right? And beyond that, it'll be meant to be a broader conversation too. Sure. Not just talking about hip hop, but about music and art and film and television and everything that you talk about on your show too. Absolutely. Just as eclectic and diverse.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, to anybody out there that's listening or watching this episode right now that has $1 and a dream, and they're really passionate about what they want to do, but they feel that sense of discouragement or they're scared, what would you say to those people that are listening and watching right now?
I would say trust yourself. But if you're really only working with a literal dollar and a dream, maybe get a job. Because it's rough out here in these streets, man.
You ain't lying.
And you definitely got to make sure that you have enough to take care of your basic needs while also turning that dollar into a dream, into $1.50 in a dream, $2 in a dream, $2.50 in a dream, until you're able to fuel your passions to the point where you grow it to the point where you're just doing what you love. So trust yourself, trust your gut, man. Stay prayed up. And do the work.
Do the work. Do the work, ladies and gentlemen. At the end of the day, actions speak louder than words, so do the fucking work. All right, well, dude, I love that you came by here. It was also kind of last minute.
Dude,
it was, you know what? It was divine timing because you happened to be in Jersey at the right time.
Right?
I had a spot open. I was like, let's get this dude on here, man.
And I knew when I saw your name on my phone, I'm like, yo, Jason usually texts me. This has got to be something important. So I pick up and I'm like, yo, what's up? He's like, yo, somebody canceled on me. I'm like, I'm there, bro. So, yeah.
Well, either way, man, it was, whether it was a cancellation or not, the plan was always to bring you out at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
But you know what? I think it happened at the perfect time.
Yeah.
It was complete divine timing as far as
absolutely,
I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, timing is everything. All right. So we're about to close out this episode, but before we go, I just have one final segment. It's everybody's favorite segment. It's called This or That. If you've never seen the show before, what happens is this is inspired off of Black Sheep's. You can get with this, you can get with that. Multiple choice questions, basic ones, and also some tailored around my guests. Get a chance to know Jeffrey Rowe a little bit more, and let's get to it. So, you ready, Najee? All right. And you ready, Jeffrey?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, for this or that, you, Mr. Jeffrey Rowe. Playlist or podcast?
Playlist.
Okay. Slides or Crocs?
Crocs.
Okay. Beach or pool?
Beach.
Early bird or night owl?
Both.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram. Hell yeah.
To give or to receive?
To give.
Introvert or extrovert?
Both.
Batman or Superman?
Batman.
Iron Man or Captain America?
Iron Man.
Mofongo or Mangu?
Ooh, damn. Mangu.
All right. Chopped cheese or Cuban sandwich?
Cuban sandwich.
All right. Are you glass half empty or glass half full?
Half full, all the way.
Would you rather be embarrassed or be afraid?
Be embarrassed.
Would you rather be too hot or be too cold?
Be too hot.
Netflix and chill or movie theater and popcorn?
Movie theater and popcorn.
Window seat or the aisle seat?
Window.
Book smart or street smart?
Both.
Reading or writing?
Writing.
James Cameron or Steven Spielberg?
Steven Spielberg.
Martin Scorsese or Quentin Tarantino?
Fuck Scorsese.
No, not fuck Scorsese.
No, right.
Love Scorsese, but I love Tarantino too. Ice water or room temperature?
Ice water.
And then finally, teamwork or solo project?
Teamwork.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this episode of First Class, Second Place. That is going to do it for the segment of This or That. And that is going to do it for my guest, Jeffrey Rowe. Thank you so much for coming through, my brother. Anybody you want to give a shout out to real quick before we close out?
I want to give out to shout out to my brother Giraldo Luis Alvarez. He's got a podcast called Siempre Pa'lante, Always Forward. He's hanging out
right there, ladies and gentlemen.
behind the scenes right now.
There.
Go check out his show, man. I'm sure that he'll be on here eventually.
You see that? Siempre Pa'lante podcast. Go check it out right now. Support it. All right. Thank you so much, brother. And ladies and gentlemen, you can find me at I am Jason Enrique on all social media platforms. Don't forget to like, subscribe on YouTube at Jason Enrique. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next week. This has been the First Class, Second Place podcast. We out.
Woo.